So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Internet Explorer. So when I click on Report Builder, it's going to deploy this Click Once application. And look, often when I talk about Report Builder, I talk about a Fisher-Price application. Now, the reason I talk about a Fisher-Price application is really this tool is designed for end users to go and create drag and drop style reports. Because you'll notice that when the menu pops up here, we've got very big buttons and lots of colors, very much like a Fisher-Price toy. So what we're wanting to do in this particular example is we want to go and create a map report because we want to go and show all of the toilets and their location from a particular point. So I'm going to click on my map wizard to do that. What you'll see is I've got the ability to create a number of different types of map where I get the information from. So I've got existing investments inside of Esri. I can take advantage of that and use my shapefiles. But in this case, what I'm going to do is write a SQL Server spatial query in order to pull the information directly out of the database. So this is the data that I just loaded up. So I click on Next, add a new data set and come from first principles. So in order to add a data set, I need to have a data source. So the data source is where I'm going to get the information from. So let's go and define that data source. So I'm going to go and call this data source DS Toilets. I'm going to connect to my local SQL Server instance. So we're just going to build that connection up and selecting my Power BI database. Now my Power BI database is the database we loaded all of that XML data into previously. So you'll see there's my data set. And you'll see that now I've got access to any of the tables that I have permissions to inside of that database. We've only got one table here, so I'm just going to click on that using the tick and flick option because you'll see that when I tick that box that all of the columns are also selected as well. Alternatively, I could edit as text and that allows me to go and write a SQL statement. But what I'm going to do here is just hit Next. And what you'll see here is that we go and generate a map of Australia. So all of those points there are toilet locations around Australia. But in this particular scenario, we're only really interested in those toilets that are within a 1 kilometre radius of Central Station. So let's click on Back. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and import a query. So here's one that I've prepared earlier. So just in my C temp demo, you'll see that there's my toilet data set here. I click on Next, and what you'll see is that we get a number of points located on here. Now what we can do here is we can then go and add a Bing map layer. And what the Bing map layer allows us to do is it allows us then to go and put a map overlay so that we get a little bit more information about it, where those points are. So you can now see there clearly where those points are. But one of the things we want to do is we want to probably change the colours of those just to make them stand outside of the map a little bit more. So let's click on Next. You'll see that we've got a number of types of map visualization that we can choose from. In this particular scenario, we're just going to choose a basic marker map, which really behaves very much like a push pin. So we click on Next. We're going to theme that we can change. We're just going to leave the default. I'm going to go and change to a push pin and a single colour. Now I'm going to click on Finish. Now that I've done that, just to make those points stand out a little bit more, I can go and click on my point layer. I can then go to my point properties, so point properties. When I've selected that, what I can do is I can change my fill and I can then go and make that red or pink or whatever colour I choose to do. Now, one of the things we also want to be able to do is we want to be able to provide a little bit more information about that particular point. So, for example, we might want to just, what's the location name? Are there any accessibility issues? Or maybe the toilet's only available between particular hours. So what we can do is use a tooltip here. So I'm going to select the tooltip of name. So what that means is that when somebody hovers over that map, when they put their mouse over a particular point, it'll pop up with a tooltip for us. So let's just go and give our title now to our report, to the map in our report. And let's go and preview that. So we click on the run. When we click on the run, what that does is it then goes and grabs our map, goes and renders it, pulls all the information out of our database and overlays those together in order to then go and create a rich interactive map. Now this map behaves very much like a web page in the fact that I can actually hover over a particular point and I can then go and get some information about that point there. So now that we're happy with that map, what we can now do is we can then go and publish that map. Now we can publish the map directly to SharePoint, or we can publish it to Report Manager. In this particular scenario, what we're going to do is we're just going to publish that directly to Report Manager. I'm going to go and call this toilet map. Hit save. Now what you'll see is that when we come back now inside of Report Manager and hit F5 to refresh, you'll now see that we've gone and published that report. I can then go and consume that report as if it's any other standard SQL Server Reporting Services report. So there's my toilet map. Now that's all well and good, so that's a great little spatial map, but one of the things we also want to do is we want to add a little bit of analytics into this map as well. So we've taken all of this toilet data, we've loaded that up using SQL Server Integration Services, we've then gone and added the geography data types so that we can get this rich mapping, but we also want to answer some questions about where are all the toilets located, so which particular state's got the maximum number of toilets, and we then want to add some data visualization. Because it's a whole concept of a picture tells 1,000 stories, and what we want to be able to do is easily go and convey that message using data visualization. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click back into Report Builder. I'm going to create a brand new report. Now in this particular report I'm going to use a table and matrix. Now I'm going to create a data set, so once again walk through how to do that. I'm going to create a new data source. Now if I had a shared data source I could take advantage of that. But in this case we're going to build one from first principles once again. So I'm going to select my Power BI database once again. I'm going to go and use exactly the same table, my toilets table. I'm just going to select that, and what that's going to do is grab all my columns for me. But when I click on Next, you'll see that I've got a new window here that we haven't seen previously, and that's the Arrange Fields window. It allows me to go and determine where I'm going to put all of this data in my report. So this is my drag and drop style reporting. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and grab my state, I'm going to go and grab my town, and I'm going to grab the name. So what that's going to allow me to do is going to go and create a drill through. So I'm going to aggregate everything at the state level, allow be able to drill down to the state, down to individual towns, and then go and see the name of the individual toilet. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to drag my name across here, and you'll see that when I drag into that values field, that allows me to go and create a number of different aggregate functions. In this case what I'm going to do is just go and create a count on that there, so the count of the number of toilets. So I click on Next. I can choose my layout. Look, in this case it doesn't make sense to have subtotals and grand totals on this particular report, but I do want to allow this expanding collapse, so that's going to allow me to drill through. So let's click on Next. I can choose a different style. I'm just going to stick with the default of Ocean and then select Finish. Now what I'm going to do is just going to run that report just so that you can see what we have there. So let's click on Run. Okay, so what you'll see listed down there is the Australian Capital Territory has 144 toilets versus Queensland that has 3,000 odd. So I can drill into the Australian Capital Territory and I can go and see each town, and I can then go and see the count by each town in there. So let's go and add some interactivity to this report. So you'll see here that I've got name here. So look, that's not really right. It's actually really a count there. So let's go and change that. Let's go and expand these out just a little bit further, just to give us a little bit more real estate there when we're looking at this information. But what I want to do is I want to just add a couple more columns in here, because it was very hard for us to go and easily see which state had the most number of toilets. So what we're going to do is add some data visualization features in order to assist us. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take that count and just copy and paste across to our other fields. But what you'll see here is that if I click on the Insert menu, that I can insert different data visualization tools. So the ones that we're going to use today is we're going to go and use a data bar. Now the data bar allows us to go and see how wide the bar is based upon the data that's there. So we select the data bar. What we're also going to do is we're now going to insert a status indicator. So a status indicator allows us to go and see trending information, and it also allows us to go and create the traffic light scenario. So I'm just going to use my shape here. Now one of the things that you will want to probably do is modify how that is. So if I go to my indicator properties, I can then go and determine what value it indicates what color. By default what it does is it breaks it up into 3 regions, or however many color icons that we've got, and I can go and change that if I want, but let's just leave that as the default. So what that allows us to do is that when we go and run our report now, what we can see is we can easily visualize which states actually have the most number of bathrooms. So you'll see that that report's just running at the moment, and now you'll see that obviously the higher the data bar there, the more toilets that we have. So rather than focusing on the individual numbers, we can actually focus on that picture. So we can now drill into the Australian Capital Territory. and likewise that data bar fills all of the way down for us. So what we've seen in this presentation today is we've looked at how we can go and create an end-to-end analytical and reporting solution. We've looked at how we can go and take a data file and load that into SQL Server using SQL Server Integration Services. We've looked at how we can go and add a new data type as well to allow us to take advantage of the spatial features inside of SQL 2008 reporting services. And finally, we've looked at some of the data visualization that we can include inside of a report using Report Builder.